Kemper versus amp, which is better? I don't know if that's actually the right question to be asking. Maybe the question ought to be, which is better for the situation? Sometimes maybe a Kemper is better, sometimes maybe an amp is better. I got 8 things to consider before you make that decision. Stick around. Hey guys, if you're new to my channel, my name's Kelly Back. I'm a Nashville session player, and I just want to share with you some insight, what to play, when to play, what not to play, and how to play. So if this is something that interests you, I'm going to give you some insight into the studio world, maybe some behind the scenes stuff. If this is something you would like, be sure to subscribe, like and share, comment below, let me know what you want to hear about. We can talk about live playing, we can talk about studio playing, maybe even TV, YouTube videos. When is the right time to use a Kemper? When is the right time to use an amp? We also have this amazing technology called profiling. The Kemper company came out with it, I believe, at the NAMM show in 2011. By 2012, people were just picking them up left and right. I got mine a few years later, used one actually, and it already had like 700 rigs in it. And I've really enjoyed the Kemper. There's really not very many times that I've missed my real amps, to be honest with you. Unless you take like this Clubman 35 and you set it in front of you and you plug a guitar into it and you hit a big A chord, and there's something about just having an amp right there in front of you. But I don't think that's actually what the Kemper is supposed to take the place of. I think the Kemper is supposed to sound like an amp that's in another room, that's mic'd great, and that's what we should be comparing it to. And I think everybody sort of figured that out. The first thing we should consider is, what does the producer want? I mean, sometimes we overlook that and we just like, I'm going to bring this. I think this is what it needs. And sometimes we just need to ask the producer, what would you like? I mean, sometimes there's some great producers who they love the sound of real amps. They have the best engineers that can get the best sounds with those, and that's what they're used to, and that's what they love, and they get an incredible product from it. There's other producers that say, hey, just bring your Kemper, or they might even say, hey man, I trust you, just bring whatever you think the project needs. And there's some producers too that are a little more high tech, and they want you to send amps or maybe a Kemper and a direct line, and they want to be able to reamp it maybe through a Kemper later on. The second thing I want to consider, maybe the producer is just like, Kelly, I'm just going to leave it totally up to you, man. You do what you think is right for the project. So what I want to consider then is, what studio am I playing at? I mean, is this a big studio like Ocean Way or Blackbird or Sound Kitchen or somewhere like that here in Nashville? That they have plenty of room. If I have cartage in, they can store my amps, they can store all my gear and everything like that. At a big studio like that, you're going to have the perfect outboard gear, the perfect mics. Typically, they're bigger budgeted sessions, so you're going to have time to switch between amps if you need to for the song, or maybe even the second verse you might want a different amp. In the bigger sessions, you have time to do that. You have time to say, hey, let's switch out cabinets here and bring in a new microphone, maybe place it a little different. Then you got your mid-sized studios, and these are studios like Omni Sound, Watershed, Hilltop Studios, Ricky Skaggs' place, Oak Tree. There's just tons of these great studios in town, and these are the workhorses. This is definitely where the majority of the music is made, and the reason being, they have great gear, they have a lot of ISO booths, and they have great people working there. They have great engineers and second engineers. And so when I'm trying to decide, am I going to take a Kemper or an amp, it depends on how big the band is. I mean, sometimes we can do some of these more traditional country things where there's steel and fiddle and the acoustic guitar. And so there might only be one ISO booth over to the side, and I might bring a combo amp and use that alongside with my Kemper. Then you have your home studio, which have become way more popular with technology. I mean, you can basically have a subscription, $35, $40 a month, and have an amazing setup at your house. And typically it's in the digital world when you're working in a home studio, but there's so many more of these. There's some really creative engineer/owner guys that I love working with in their home studios. Steve Dady actually has a studio. It's called Sunset Boulevard. And he already has cabinets ran out to an ISO booth in his garage. And so he has the speaker cables already ran. So you just bring in your amp head, whatever you want to bring in, you plug it in, and you're ready to go. Or you can bring in a Kemper and use that also. You know, when we're talking about home studios, one of the best I've ever been to is the Pool Room. It's south of Nashville in Franklin, and it's owned by Randy Poole, and he's typically there engineering, turning the knobs, making us all sound good. He was nice enough to do a video on something that you're really going to want to see.
Hey guys, Randy Poole, engineer. A friend of mine, Kelly Back, asked me to take a little video of the ISO box we have here. So on this side is kind of your standard, this is where the cabinet is, microphone, decent size and shape. But when we first made it, there was way too much low end. It was just, rolling around inside the box.
You know, Randy is so right about the tubbiness, about the low end rumble of typically setting your amp in a box like this, but he has really got it figured out.
Even though we're close miking, made it way too tubby. So I added onto the box. So the box is 2 layers thick. It is 2 sheets of 3/4, making it 1.5 inches. And added this diaphragmic absorber. So this works like a reverse subwoofer. So when there's holes in here that come from the other side, and when you press on this, it works like a reverse subwoofer, and it soaks up a lot of that low end and allows it to become a different type of energy that keeps the box really even sounding. And then this screws on here, and that's how we make a box that sounds even, but yet gets the isolation that you need to have. Thanks, guys.
Randy, thank you so much for making that video, and this is just another reason that the Pool Room sounds so amazing. Another reason is you just always thinking outside the box. Oh, wait a minute. You're thinking inside the box, ain't you? Just in a different way. A way that the rest of us don't even understand. Guys, be sure to check out the Pool Room, Franklin, Tennessee. Just Google it. You know, the third thing that I always consider is the client or the producer, or is the project having its budget, the money to pay for cartage. And cartage, if you don't know, cartage is basically these companies, and they store our amps and our gear and guitars and everything at a warehouse. And then when we have these sessions, we call them up, and they get there early that morning. Before we get there, they set all of our gear up. Sometimes they even set the guitars up. They set drums up. They get everything ready to go. So we can basically come in maybe 30 minutes before the session and get a sound. And even some of the cartage companies, they also get drum sounds and stuff. So the drummer can just basically walk in and play. So typically, if there's cartage in the budget, I'm going to have all my amps there, and I'm going to be a happy camper. And typically, I just go ahead and bring my Kemper and just set it over. Did I say happy Kemper or happy camper? So I might just set the Kemper over to the side, and if there's some kind of weird amp that they want, that I don't have, or some kind of stereo thing they want to do that I can do real easy on my Kemper, I might do that, but typically if there's cartage, I'm going to have all my amps there. The fourth thing I consider is the type of ISO booths they have. I mean, if they have a small closet ISO booth that's great for a combo amp, sometimes that's not great for like a Marshall cabinet. And say it's a rock and roll kind of thing, and that's really what you're really wanting. I would consider bringing my Kemper amp and using that over just bringing basically a combo amp and getting my overdrives and distortions from my pedal board. The fifth thing that I always consider is the engineer. I mean, who am I working with? What do they like? I mean, sometimes it takes a phone call to say, hey, do you want me to bring a Kemper? Do you want me to bring an amp? And typically I do that if the artist or producer has said, hey, I'm just going to leave it up to you. So then I want to see what the engineer likes to deal with. There's some guys that don't want to see the Kemper. There's some guys that would rather see the Kemper. A great friend of mine, great engineer in this town named Mark Capps. He loves to get great amp sounds, and that's what he prefers. We had a session a couple weeks ago, and it was so much fun. I brought an amp and a cabinet. We ran the cabinet in the back. He put it in basically a road case and isolated it and put a mic on it, a couple mics actually. Actually, there was 3 mics on it. Had a new mic that he was using. But man, he just got an awesome tone out of that amp, and I love working with guys like that know what they're doing. Then on the flip side, you got engineers that just absolutely love for you to bring the Kemper. They love the technology side of it. They want to hear, there was a new upgrade not too long ago about the verbs and delays in the Kemper, and there's a new one right now, I believe, on the drives. So there's some engineers, they love that part of it, and they can't wait to hear what you're bringing them. The 6th thing that I consider is gear. I mean, does this studio, if I'm going to bring an amp, do they have the right mics? Do they have the right outboard gear? Or do they have the right plugins? You know, and then there's some modeling microphones that are actually awesome. But do they have what I need to get a great amp sound? I mean, I'd rather have my Kemper if I'm going to bring a great amp and the great amp's not going to sound like it's supposed to, because they just don't have the gear. The 7th thing that I consider is the pace of the session. And what I mean by that is, are we trying to get 1 song every 3 hours? We're trying to get 5 songs every 3 hours. Here in Nashville, we are booked on 3-hour blocks. So we can have up to 4 sessions a day, 10, 2, 6, and 10. And we typically take breaks in between each 1-hour break for lunch especially. So if we're trying to get 1 song a session, meaning trying to get 1 song in 3 hours, I might bring several different amps, hopefully have cartage there to have all my amps. We might cut the song and I say, hey, for my second pass, I'm going to try a totally different amp. I'd have plenty time to do that, plenty time to get new sounds on this new amp. We have the time to do that. Or another situation is if we're trying to get 5 songs in 3 hours, I want it to be able to move as quick as I can. I might just bring 1 combo amp, or I might bring my Kemper. That way I can switch drastically between sounds pretty quickly. Before we talk about this 8th thing, I just want to encourage you, if you've enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe, like, and share this video, and ring the notification. It'll let you know next time we have a new video coming out. I sure appreciate you all so much. And the 8th thing is scheduling. Let's look at a scenario. Okay, Hendersonville, Tennessee at 10 a.m. I've got plenty of time to get there. I live in Hendersonville. And I drive over and I bring like 3 different amps. I set them all up and we go between during those 3 hours and we use all 3 of them and we're loving it. They're loving it. I'm loving it. At 1 o'clock, they want me to do 1 more overdub. So I'm not actually finished until about 1:15. So at 1:15, I start tearing all my gear down. I load my car up. By the time I do all that, now it's 1:30. I have 30 minutes to get to Franklin, Tennessee. I'm 15 minutes late. I come walking in trying to set up 3 different amps. It's just not a good situation. If I would have just thought about it and planned out my day, I could have brought maybe 1 combo amp. I could have brought my Kemper. And that's probably what I would have done, is brought my Kemper and a combo amp. And if the engineer, producer, or artist wanted a real amp, I've got that with me, but I'm going to use the Kemper because I know I have to be 45 minutes away at the 2 o'clock session. So that is so important, is scheduling. It gets us sometimes, but that's where the Kemper convenience comes into play. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. And if you liked it, be sure to subscribe, like, and share. Ring the notification and we'll let you know when the next video is coming out. It should be the same time next week. Be sure to comment below and let us know what you want to see and hear. Okay, time to get back to music.